Namaste. Welcome back to Smriti. Today we have here Dr. Jambunathan Garu back again to lead us on Shad Darshanas. Thank you so much for taking time. In our previous episode, you mentioned briefly about the texts called Darshanas and Nyaya Shastras, Mimamsa, and you gave us a kind of an introduction. And today you're going to take us a bit more in the depth of what these text darshanas are, Shad Darshanas. Please give us some knowledge, share some knowledge on the role of these texts in the Vedic culture, Hindu culture, and also the relevance of them in the present times. Thank you, Jambunathan Garu. Please.
Namaste to all audiences. Namaste Satyavani Garu, and happy Navaratri to all the audience. And it is very auspicious Friday during a Durgashtami time that we are having this discussion. So I wish everybody a very happy and pleasant Navaratri. And thank you again, Satyavani Garu, for continuing this session. So last time we talked about, the Yajnavalkya Smriti and the kind of the classification of the Indian scriptures and where the Nyaya and the Mimamsa scriptures come. And, we talked about that Vedo Akila Dharma Moolam. Vedas are the root of all dharmas and everything sprung only from the Vedas. So, the Shad Darshanas, SHAD, because I want difference. There's a SAT, Sad Darshana, and there's a Shad Darshana.
Right.
Sat Darshana means SAT means Sat here means Satya. Satya Darshana means the truth. That was in a Sanskrit version of a book written by Ramana Maharshi, the famous Ramana Maharshi who lived in Tiruvannamalai. But there is a Shad Darshana, which is what we are talking about today, which is the SHAD, which is 6 darshanas. So there is a true darshana and a 6 darshanas. And the 6 darshanas, according to our rishis, they have categorized them into Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Those are the 6 darshanas. And basically what they all do is they try to explore the Vedas. So, the Shad Angas are different, which is the Kalpa Shastra, the Jyotisha Shastra, Vyakarana Shastra, Chandas, Shiksha, are all Nirukta. Those are called the Shad Angas, 6 subsidiaries to the Vedas. And this is 6 exploration of the Vedas. So one is exploring what the Vedas are trying to tell. And the other one is helping to either chant the Vedas properly or do the Vedic karmas properly. So the Shad Angas are like subsidiaries, they're assistants to Vedas. Whereas the Darshanas are trying to explore what are the Vedas telling to us. What do they teach to us? What direction they give to us? Because a Darshana means direction or light, showing a light. So that is what the Darshanas are trying to explore and try to find out what the Vedas are really telling us. How should we live and what is our final goal and all that kind of stuff. So, all this comes only from our rishis. The Vedas, as we saw, is coming directly from the God himself. And it is coexistent with God. It says that God did not even create the Vedas. The Vedas were coexistent with God like the breath of God. So do you think God created his own breath? The God was born with his breath, or God is always with his own breath. So the Vedas are considered the breath of God himself. So they were coexistent with God. So that is what we believe in. And, the rishis all were the ones who brought the Vedas to us down the lines from different lineages. So we got the Vedas till now. So the same rishis also try to explore and try to understand, make us understand what the Vedas tell. So when they decided that the Nyaya Shastra is one which describes the logical analysis of the Vedas. So it tries to analyze the Vedic statements in a logical way and try to debate on the Vedic statements and try to give us the final determination, what do they say. So the Vaisheshika actually also discuss about mainly what we call the entities. Let's say when you go to read something, let's say you go to read physics or chemistry, what are you trying to learn in physics? You're trying to learn about the structure of this or that, or how this functions. So, and chemistry too, you try to read what are the different chemicals, and when 2 chemicals join, what is the reaction outcome? So all this you're trying to read. Same thing the Vaisheshika tries to explore the things surrounding us. What are the things that the universe is made up of? So that's how it comes to the atomic theory. So the Vaisheshikas were the first people to propose the atomic theory, that there is atoms at the bottom of everything. These atoms kind of join in different ways, and only by this atomic combination the entire universe is formed. So the Nyaya Shastra also has atomic theory, but the atomic theory is little bit lower there, and the debate part and the logic analysis more. The Vaisheshika has more the exploration of the entities and less of the logical analysis. But later down the road, they combine because they have a lot of commonalities among each other. So the Nyaya Vaisheshika combined after like period of time. So people begin to address them in one breath. Instead of telling Nyaya Shastra separately, Vaisheshika Shastra separately, they say Nyaya Vaisheshika as one Shastra. So because there is a lot of commonalities, but just for our understanding, the initial Nyaya Shastra focused on the means of knowledge and more on logical analysis, whereas the Vaisheshika Shastra proposed more on the how to analyze the universe surrounding us. So that was the two Shastras. And then the Sankhya Shastra and the Yoga Shastra, they are also combined, though we tell them as two separate Shastras, they got combined too because of some commonalities between them. The Sankhya Shastra is again, the interesting thing is Indians only spoke about spirituality, but the Indian rishis were also the one who talked more about matter also, spirit and matter. So, we always, all thing around us is made of matter, whether it's organic matter or inorganic matter, everything is matter around us. And, from matter comes energy. And, those are all those physical things. Our rishis gave a lot of insights on these things too. And the Sankhyas were the first materialistic analysis, like the Vaisheshikas, they told the entire universe is made up of atomic things. So these are all atoms, and atoms join in different proportions, and that's how you get different things. Whereas the Sankhyas, they do agree that it's atoms, but they give the theory of the Prakriti, which means they said the matter is made up of 3 gunas, which is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas combine in different proportions, and that's how you get the entire universe. So they gave the Guna theory to the universe, whereas the Vaisheshika gave us the atomic theory to the universe. So they said everything is composed of 3 things, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So when things are just, very dead, not functioning, they're all Tamas. Some of them which is very vibrating and active, they were all called Rajas. And things which had intelligence and ability to discriminate, they were all Sattva. So the various combination of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas gives rise to the whole universe. So that was the Sankhyans. So they were the biggest materialistic theory people. But they did admit that there is a soul or Atma which is different from all this matter, because they're all, on the bottom line, they're followers of Vedas. So the Vedas always tell there is a Atman or a Brahman behind everything. So all these 6 darshanas in one level or the other accept that, they might not accept the supreme God, but they still accept that there is a spirit and a matter which are separate from each other. And they say, so the Sankhyan said that the spirit and matter, and once you understand your matter and you dissociate yourself from the matter, you are the pure spirit. So that's how the Sankhyans started the theory. The yoga gave us a practical approach. Okay, Sankyans are telling this is how the entire universe is made up of, and there is a spirit and matter, but you need to experience the spirit in your real life. And that's how they gave us the yoga theory. So the Sankyans gave the theoretical part, and the yoga people gave the practical part. Okay, this is how the things are composed. Okay, how do I realize this in my own life? You follow the principles of yoga, you can experience it yourself. So that's how the yoga became the practical part of Sankhya. And then comes the Mimamsa and Vedanta. And as you know, the Vedas are broadly divided into the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. The Karma Kanda describes all the rituals and the chantings associated with the Vedas, whereas the Jnana Kanda is the Upanishad, which gives you all the knowledge of Brahman, Atman, and how to reach it and all that stuff. So one is the knowledge part, the other one is the ritual part. And both of the Vedantas, Mimamsa and the Vedanta, they focus little bit more on each other. Like Mimamsa focus most on the ritualistic part, and Vedanta focus most on the Jnana part. So they are all again focusing only on the Vedas, but the importance they give is more towards Jnana Kanda is Vedanta, or this is called Uttara Mimamsa. In fact, this is called Purva Mimamsa. In fact, both of them are called Mimamsa. Mimamsa means analysis or investigation. Anything which you investigate pertaining to the Vedas, it's called Mimamsa. So Purva Mimamsa investigates the Karma Kanda part of the Vedas, whereas the Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta investigates the Jnana Kanda part of the Vedas. So they're investigating what is the ritualist part. But both of them give attention to the other part also, but in a minor way. The Mimamsa people give little attention. They don't ignore it because they have to include all the Vedas. They give a small attention to the Jnana Kanda part, whereas the Jnana Kanda part give a small attention to the Karma Kanda part. So they do include them, but the importance is different. In the Mimamsa, the more importance is to the Karma Kanda part, and the Vedanta is more importance to the Jnana Kanda part. So that's way, and that's why the Mimamsa Vedanta, that's why in the old system, whether it's Adi Shankara tradition or Ramanuja tradition or Madhvacharya tradition, they need to be very skilled or masterful in both the sections, because you need to be knowing how to perform the rituals properly, and then you also need to know how to evolve yourself to become this spirit yourself. So that is, so both of them are given importance. So that's why they were called the Mimamsakas, which included both the Purva Mimamsa and the Uttara Mimamsa part. So, but now in our age, the Purva Mimamsa has gone slowly subsiding. We don't see people doing that much of Vedic rituals and other things. So the Purva Mimamsa path is slowly, kind of going down the radar, whereas the Vedanta part has been highlighted by a lot of people, and it's at least that part of the Vedas is shining all over the world. A lot of our philosophers, they did a lot of English translation. So a lot of people who are not even Hindus are now able to read them and understand them. So that is kind of the scheme of things. So the Nyaya Shastra focuses on logical analysis. Vaisheshika focuses on how to analyze the universe in terms of the components of the universe. The Sankhya focuses again on the materialistic component of the universe, and again how the universe is made up of. The yoga gives us a practical approach, how to realize the spirit yourself by following a particular discipline. And the Uttara Mimamsa and the Purva Mimamsa focuses on the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda part of Vedas. So that's why this Shad Darshanas was a very, very important thing that, in fact, Lord Shiva says in one of the Puranas, if you read the Shad Darshanas, it's actually you're worshipping each part of my body. So if you master Shad Darshanas, you worship Shiva from head to foot. That's what Shiva himself says. And same thing, Goddess Parvati also says the same thing in the Kurma Purana to her own father, Himavan, that, understanding the Shad Darshanas is actually a form of worship of me. So both Shiva and Parvati have told them in different contexts, and that, and trying to read the Shad Darshanas itself is a form of worship to the Lord. And it's, you learn a lot when you do those things. And, like I said, now coming slowly to our discussion mainly on the Nyaya Vaisheshika part, I want to, tell our audience that the Nyaya Indians were, the originators of the logic. Though it got popular in the European side later, Aristotle popularized it, from Aristotle, a lot of the other Western logic came up, but the Indian logicians were way ahead of in time, but we just didn't give more prominence to us, and we are slowly realizing all the importance of what they have contributed. And, in terms of the Indian logic, the Nyaya Shastra, where did it start from? How long it's been there? Again, if you go to our religious books, these are all been existent from time eternal. Like we cannot pinpoint a time. Like, can you tell the time the Vedas come? Like a lot of these British scholars have given timings like 10,000 years, 5,000 years, whatever it is. But really, we believe these are all have been existent and since time immemorial. We don't know when the creation started. So because we said God and Vedas are coexistent. So when you're telling Vedas, it has a 10,000 periods, then you're going to say God also exists only for 10,000 years. So, we believe that these were, eternally present, and our rishis were able to gather the information and give it to us. So the Nyaya Shastra also, it is said in the Padma Purana, it is said that Vishnu himself taught the Nyaya Shastra to Brahma, and Brahma taught it to the rishis. So it is again a tradition which comes from God itself. So we don't think these were all human made, but the human rishis made it easy for us in terms of writing a book and giving it as a scripture for us to read. And it said that there are two Gautamas, Gautama Rishi, Gautama Maharishi is supposed to be the founder of the Nyaya Shastra. And there are several Gautama rishis if you read the Upanishads and the Puranas. But the one main Gautama which everybody will remember is in Ramayana. There was this sage called Gautama, and Ahalya was his wife. And Ahalya, fell into love with Indra. And then when Gautama Maharishi finds it out, he curses his wife to become a stone. And we saw that Lord Ramachandra, when he was coming with Vishwamitra to the forest, his feet touches the stone, and because of the divine feet of Lord Ramachandra touching the stone, Ahalya comes back to life. And then Gautama says, now you are purified because Lord Vishnu's feet has touched you, and so I will take you back. And they again become husband and wife like that. We know the story. So that Gautama Maharishi itself is somewhere considered the founder of the Nyaya Shastra. So that is basically, and then there is other Gautama, which is called Akshapada Gautama. So these were two Gautamas, and they think, again, we cannot, with our Indian history, it's hard to pinpoint a time, but these two Gautama rishis were really the founders, or I wouldn't say even the founders, the propagators of the Nyaya Shastra. Because when you say founder means they found it, but basically we believe these are all God-given. So, in some form or the other. So, but, like I said, even the Vedas are God-given, but we say this Rig Veda was popularized by this rishi, or this rishi means he gave it from God, he got it, but he taught his disciples. So we give an importance to that rishi in terms of doing that, The same way the Nyaya Shastra was propagated by the Gautama rishis. But we know more about the Akshapada Gautama, which is the second Gautama. And his name itself is Akshapada. Aksha means eye. Pada means feet. So he had an eye in his feet itself. So that's why it's called Akshapada Gautama. And the story is interesting is because he was always thinking about the Vedas and trying to understand the meaning of the Vedas. He's always lost to the earth. He's always like, sometimes you walk on the streets, you don't even see anything. You just think about something and you walk, So we call daydreaming, So when you're daydreaming, you don't pay attention. You are awake, but you're not paying attention to anything. So this Gautama was always like that once he was walking, he fell down in a well. A deep well, and people have to come and rescue him. So God thought about him and said, well, you are always thinking me and my Vedas. That's why you are not even paying attention. So I will give you an eye on the feet so that at least your feet can know if you're going in a wrong spot. So that's how the mythology story is there. So this Akshapada Gautama is the one who composed the Nyaya Sutras for us. So in our tradition, all these darshanas, whether I talked about all the 6 darshanas, we have what we call a sutra, a bhashya, and a vartika. Those are 3 standard things, which means somebody wrote the sutras. The sutras are like very small, single line statements. They're like, they will not be very big. They're trying to give a condensed statement in one line. For example, we talked about the statement in the last lecture, Atato Brahma Jignasa. That is one statement which I said from the Badarayana's Vedanta Sutra. It's only one line, Atato Brahma Jignasa, means after that we will start to analyze about God. So that is only one statement. After that we'll start. What does it mean? So you have to understand, you have to do something before, prepare yourself, and once you have prepared yourself adequately, then you can start analyzing about God. And then the question comes is, what does this preparation entail? So, but all this is given in only one line. Atato Brahma Jignasa means after that we will start investigating about God. So same way the sutras are like very pregnant with meaning. They just give one line, but there is very deep meaning to that. But this is one way of how they remember things, because they try to condense that way. Because in olden days, we didn't have all these books and computers. People have to memorize things to their heart. So it was by remembering these sutras, they could understand the whole concept in a very simple form. So the Nyaya Sutras were written by the Gautama Maharishi. And then after the sutras comes the bhashyas. Bhashyas means they're trying to write an interpretation, give a more, and then the vartikas are commentaries, which is more detailed. So the sutras are like, I can give you like simple line. One is a single line statement. Other one is like writing a paragraph. Other one is writing a whole essay. So like that's what the sutra, bhashya, and vartikas, they were like different. They're all telling the same thing, but in a more elaborate way. And that's why so every of these Shaddarshanas will have a sutra, bhashya, vartika, and there will be several more also, but these were common for all the Shaddarshanas. So the Nyaya Sutras were written by our Gautama Rishi. But here I want to bring an interesting thing is, our religion, like as I said in our last lecture, we have three components to our religion. One is what we call a logical part. The second is what we call a ritualistic part. And the third we call is the mystical part. I said there is also something which is beyond the human comprehension, which things. And so our Vedas or our Hindu way of life had all three things. There was some element of analysis and reasoning. There was some element of performing rituals without questioning. And there were some elements which you grasped by divine grace or something else, which you cannot explain by normal human mind, but things are happening, which we call the mystical part. So the olden days, the logic was there, but people believed the faith, the Vedas tell you do this, they did it. And so they didn't question much of that. But the real point of questioning came is when the Buddhas and Jains came. So though there was logic already there, people accepted. They didn't even want to reason. Okay, these are the Vedas, these are the Shastras. They're only telling good for us. Let's not do deep analyze them. Just follow them as we do, and we'll do good. So that was the attitude. So though there was the logic part already there, they didn't pay attention to it because said, okay, why do we need it logically? If we do it, we're going to be better. Let's do it. So, but when the Buddhas and the Jains came, and again, these are all, we believe that even Buddha was an avatar of Lord Vishnu. Some people believe that Buddha himself was an avatar of Lord Vishnu, because when people begin to do rituals without questioning and going overboard, somebody needed to come and put a stop for that. And it said that Buddha began to question all the Vedas and what did you do there, and there was very great amount of logic in what Buddha and his followers did. So the logic was actually rejuvenated by them. The Buddhists and the Jainas are the people who actually rejuvenated the concept of logic, because they were the ones beginning to question, okay, why do you want to do this? What is the reason? Can you get away without doing this? And then when they started analyzing the universe too, okay, what is the universe? And is it everything true? Because you see the same tree, the tree looks one way like this, but in 1 month the tree looks different. Everything is constantly changing. Nothing is in a state of steadiness. What you see, even your own body, it looks one way like this, but in the 1 year from now it looks different. So that's the Buddhists and Jainis said. They begin to analyze everything and said everything is in a state of flux. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary, going like this. So they begin to question all these things. They begin to use more logic to explain things. So that's why a lot of people begin to believe them, because they give a lot of reasons for why they are telling those things. So now the people follows the Vedas, they have to wake up. Okay, now we need to follow logic also to explain people why we are doing. And so you need to bring logic to what you're thinking and you're doing. So that's how the logic got rejuvenated again. Though it was already there, it kind of went in the back burner. But when the Buddhists and Jains came and their followers were using a great amount of logic to make the people reason out, that's when this came. And I would say in Tamil Nadu we were there. It was very interesting that Kanchi Shankaracharya was in Tamil Nadu, and a lot of the saints were from Tamil Nadu. But at the same time, this the political parties came after the Congress. We call the DMK, the DK, and all that. They were again starting to tell the people the same reasons. They call Pagutarivu, means you need to have reasoning. You should not blindly follow. And that's what our Kanchi Periva says. This is always happening. In fact, this the DK people questioning us should make us think about our own logic also. So they said. So that's why he said we should be also reasonable. Though we are following faith, we need to be having a reasonable. I disagree with them because they say there is no God, but I don't disagree with the reasoning. That's what he said. So that same thing, the Buddhists and Jains begin to reason out, and that's how our logic start to grow again, and people started paying attention to all the things there. And so the Gautama Sutras were the first thing to come, and it is said that in the Gautama Sutras, what he tried to cover were 5 important things. It's a big book. We'll slowly maybe go over the topics down the road, but I think what he tried to cover initially was we call pramanas, prameyas, vada, avyaya, Anya Mata Pariksha. So those are the 5 things which are covered. Means basically Pramanas means knowledge. Question is, you are getting knowledge. What is the source of knowledge? For example, if you are telling, I am reading anatomy, you say, I read this book of anatomy and that's how I get my knowledge. So you say, my source of knowledge is from this book. Or I looked at Google and that gave me this information. So every knowledge you have to tell what is the source of knowledge. Okay, you got a knowledge, but tell me where did you get the knowledge from? So that's what the pramana. So basically, the pramanas tell what are the different sources of knowledge available to us. Prameyas means, okay, you got knowledge, but what are you trying to learn now? Okay, you said this is the source of your knowledge. What are you trying? So the objects of what you're trying to learn is called the prameyas. So the pramanas are the sources of knowledge and the prameyas are the objects of knowledge, like what you're trying to learn. Like I'm trying to learn the whole universe. What is the universe made up of? That's, trying to analyze the universe itself is a prameya. So the pramanas and the prameyas. Vada means discussion. So the word there only comes, there's a lot of, they used to call even the debates became called vadas, pramana vada, prameya vada, and then nirishwara vada means arguing there is no God. Ishwara vada means arguing there is God. Nirishwara vada means arguing there is no God. So all these vadas, basically you're trying to debate, and that's how our Hindu religion, very, very important. They was the ones who promoted debate. They said only by debate and discussion, the real truth will come out anywhere. And now to wherever you go, they want to debate on a topic, discuss a topic. So that's when 2 or 3 minds come together, only you can analyze and get a better answer out of it. So this was stated already by us that vadas were very important. That people need to discuss and debate, and then only your knowledge can get enriched. And then came the avyaya, means, okay, you told us now there should be a way of doing this. Okay, you said this, you should do debate, you should analyze, but how do you exactly do it? And that is called the avyaya, means the parts, PARTS, different components. Like, so I will talk about down one of our future discussions, what are the avyayas are, and basically the practical part of it. Like, okay, you're telling debate, you're telling discuss, what is the different steps you should follow, how you discuss and debate. And then finally is Anya Mata Pariksha, means trying to investigate the other religions and trying to see how you are different from them or how you are better from them. It's always a part of our Hindu religion. Like anybody, you go to Vaishnavism or Shaivism, they will tell fully about the religion, but then there will be a section in all of those books how they are different and better from the other religions. So that is always there. Even Adi Shankara has done this. How is the Advaita Mata better than the others? He has done those discussions too. So that's always been a part of our philosophy. Okay, you do decide, I'm going to follow this, and then you have to justify why you are following this, because my thing is the best thing, and I'm telling my thing is the best thing because these are the faults in all those peoples. And again, these were not done like pointing mistakes to them, but trying to justify your own self that I'm following this because I don't find any faults in this. Whereas if I try to follow this, I find there's a small fault on that. So you're trying to mostly justifying yourself and justifying the others, why you are following this, because you find some defects in all the other things, but the one you are following is not defect. So that's how the Anya Mata Pariksha was always there. So the same thing, the Nyaya Sutras also go through all these things, trying to discuss the Pramanas, Prameyas, Vadas, Avyayas, and Anya Mata Pariksha. So that is kind of the gross of the entire Nyaya Sutras. It's a big book, but that is entirely, this is summary of what is there. Now, like I said, the Buddhists and the Jains were, like I said, big opponent, because the main difference problem came is the Buddhists, when they came, they said everything is a dream. Like when you're living when you're sleeping, you are dreaming. But when you wake up, the dream is gone. Everything is unreal now. They begin to propose even when you're living alive and you're awake, whatever you're seeing is just a projection of the mind. It's a bigger dream. That's all they said. So that was one of the main theories, because they gave all these explanations, how things are constantly changing. They have their own logic by why they say even your awakening state is a dream, and what you see, everything is not very real. They are all very unreal, and they're just momentary combinations. So when the people of the Nyaya and the Mimamsa, they are called realists. So the ones, the people who believe the entire thing is just in a flux and not constant and it's like a dream, they're called idealists. So the idealists believe that things are in a flux, nothing is stable, everything is like a dream. Whereas the realists believe that everything is stable, everything is God-given, they are stable, though they keep changing, they're very stable. So the realists and the idealists became a big problem. So that's when the Buddhists and the Jain were using their logic to say everything is ideal. Whereas the Mimamsakas and the Nyayas, because you're doing pujas and homas, if everything is unreal, even the pujas and homas also become unreal. So that's how the Buddhists defeated, telling that you can't do, what is the value of homas? Everything is unstable, everything is like a dream. So what you're doing is also a dream, so there is no purpose of doing it. And that's how they condemn doing all these rituals. So the Mimamsas now, they have to defend to the people why they are doing the rituals, because everything is a dream, then there is no need to do anything. So they have to develop a logical analysis to prove the reality of the universe. So that's how the Nyaya Shastra began to grow. That was the most important contribution, was they were trying to substantiate the reality of the universe and trying to, the universe is not a dream. So the Buddhists were propagating the universe is a dream, whereas the Nyaya Shutra people were the one who were trying to propose the universe is a reality. So that was the major point of difference. And so if you see the logic, it will go like back and forth. So if I said Nyaya Sutra was Gautama, and after Gautama came Vatsyayana, we'll talk about them more later too. And then after Vatsyayana came Udyodkara. These are all the different scholars who came in the Nyaya lineage. And then Vachaspati Mishra. But if you see each of them, as soon as Gautama Sutras came, one of Buddha's followers called Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is a very big scholar. In fact, one of the greatest scholars, which even the Hindus accept. And he wrote the Madhyamika Karika. The Madhyamika Karika goes to kind of demolish everything what you think is real. So basically, the Madhyamika Karika, is a very logical analysis of how things are unreal. And he says at the end of the topic that even the scripture I am writing is unreal, but the unreal will help you prove the other unreal. So basically, because he has to then justify, because everything is unreal, then he has to say your scripture is also unreal, but he accepts that. He says, but you need one unreal to prove the other unreal, and that's how it goes. So again, after the Nagarjuna came the Vatsyayana. So from Gautama Maharishi, the next person was Vatsyayana. Vatsyayana wrote the Nyaya Bhashya. So he has to counteract all of Nagarjuna's point in his Bhashya. He has to explain what his Guru Gautama said is one, but at the same time, he has to defend his philosophy against the idealism and nihilism created by Nagarjuna. So after Nagarjuna came the next Buddhist scholar, Dignaga. He was another big scholar, and he began to demolish whatever Vatsyayana said, and then he developed counter arguments. No, there is no reality. Everything is only ideal, or everything only dreamlike. And so they have to, because they have to keep defending their theories. So there was again a very logical dispute, and Dignaga was trying to dispute what Vatsyayana wrote. So then came Udyodkara, who was again a Nyaya Shastra guru. He wrote the Vartika. So Gautama Rishi wrote the Sutra, Vatsyayana wrote the Bhashya, and Udyodkara wrote the Vartika. I already told about Sutra, Bhashya, and Vartika. Those are the three for every of the sutras. But this Vatsyayana is different from the other Vatsyayana. There's another Vatsyayana who wrote Kama Sastra. And he's the one who wrote about the art of love and everything. So that Vatsyayana is different from this Vatsyayana. But they were all rishis only on that, And so then comes the Udyodkara, he wrote the Bhashya part. So after I said Nagarjuna was one, there was another one called Dignaga. The third one was Dharmakirti. These are all you can Google, you can read. These are big scholars in Buddhism. Nagarjuna, Dignaga, Dharmakirti, Vasubandhu. These are all very, very big Buddhist scholars. Like after Buddha, any Buddhist scholar would know about these people. Like how every Hindu would know about Adi Shankara and Ramanuja, all the Buddhist people would know about these people. So, and so the Dharmakirti again tried to counteract whatever Udyodkara said and tried to again defend the Buddhist concept again with the logical analysis. Again, they were not like building castles. They were trying to defend exactly on the principles of logic. So that's why I said the Buddhism and the Jainism, they contributed a lot to the growth of the logic. Though Indian logic was there, but the logic has to be refined constantly to maintain your standards against their opinions, you know. So that's how they came. So that's how you should Nyaya Shastra, Nyaya Sutra, Nyaya Bhashya, Nyaya Vartika. Then came the great scholar Vachaspati Mishra. Vachaspati Mishra counteracted all of Dharmakirti statements too. So after Gautama came Nagarjuna. After Nagarjuna came Vatsyayana. After Vatsyayana came Dignaga. After Dignaga came Udyodkara. After Udyodkara came Dharmakirti. After Dharmakirti came Vachaspati Mishra. I'm just putting a crisscross between the Hindu scholars and the Buddhist scholars who came in different time periods, who counteracted each other. So Vachaspati Mishra was called a Sarva Tantra Swatantra. Sarva Tantra Swatantra means one who was a master of all fields. Sarva Tantra Swatantra means one who had independence or freedom. He was master in all the fields. So basically, in those days, if you knew the Shaddarshanas thoroughly, bottom, you would get the title. All the 6, you should know all the depths of Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, everything. And also you should be a master of the Vedas and the Puranas and the Dharma Shastras. If you got all this in your hand, you can get the title. But only very few people get the title, you know. And Vachaspati Mishra was one. He is the one who commented on Adi Shankara's Brahma Sutra 2. He commented on Sankhya Sutras. He commented on Yoga Sutras. He commented on Mimam Sutras. He also commented on the Vedanta Sutras. So he did it on all the 6 things. He wrote a commentary on all of them. So he wrote a commentary on the Nyaya Vartika. It's called Nyaya Vartika Tatparya Tika. So Nyaya Sutra, Nyaya Bhashya, Nyaya Vartika, Nyaya Vartika Tatparya Tika. That was what written by Vachaspati. In that he defends all the Nyaya concepts against the Buddhist oppositions, you know. And it goes on. I think we probably have to cover that in the next session. But I think, you know, at least this is the idea of, you know, where the Nyaya Shastra came from and what are the basic things it dealt with and how they have to not only defend the Hindu concepts, but they have to, you know, attack against the Buddhist concepts to preserve the reality concepts. So these were all back and forth. But it's again a growth of logic. You should not see it as a debate or thing, but you should see, you will learn actually a lot of logic by reading this, how they use logic to, you know, defend their concepts or oppose their opponents. And it was all done in a very, very reasonable way.
Amazing. Such an insightful information, and really had so many questions in between, but probably you read my mind, you answered them as well. A wealth of knowledge here, and you have inspired, kindled interest to really go back, read some more of it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate. So we shall continue on, as you mentioned earlier, a bit more depth into the various the texts that you have mentioned in this particular lecture. Yes. And thank you again. Please stay with us. All this curation is happening at smriti.upasana.net. Please do visit and support. We do have a YouTube channel, Upasana. Again, support, follow, share, subscribe. And we are all in this together. We are trying to preserve, as Jambunathan Garu rightly mentioned. It is good to know various things, and then you have your own standpoint, and it all makes a difference. And this is just a small effort to curate such information, the wealth of information that has been passed on, and it is a responsibility on all of us to preserve and keep it alive. Thank you again. Please walk with us. Thank you for now. Namaste.
Namaste.